Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Gunn, and I am the coordinator of digital scholarship here at Catholic University of America Libraries. This workshop is being recorded and will be made available at a later date, along with the slides. Today, we were having a workshop titled AI and the Artist: Tools, Techniques, and Ethics by our own Charles Gallagher, Research and Instruction Librarian here at CUA. Welcome, Charles. Um, If you have any questions, feel free to ask Charles during the workshop or use the chat box. Take it away, Charles.
Thank you. I am today's workshop, AI and the Artist, is aimed at discussing the recent phenomenon of AI art. It is my goal that by the end of the workshop, you'll have an idea about what AI art is, what are some of the best practices for use, and how to identify AI art. As you can see today, we have an impressive agenda. So we're going to start with a basic on what AI art is and how it's created. We'll talk about the different ways that AI art can be used. We'll talk about some of the prompt engineering or best ways to develop an AI art prompt. We'll talk about ways that you can identify AI art. As you may have seen on the internet or on social media, there is all kinds of AI art out there. And it's oftentimes important to distinguish real images from ones that can be generated by a computer. So we'll talk about some of the ways you can kind of identify AI art. We'll talk about some of the challenges and issues related to using AI art. As with all generative AI, there are all kinds of issues that come up with it. So we'll cover some of those in that part of our presentation. And then we'll conclude with some final thoughts regarding AI art. So before we dive in deeper into the topic, I like to bring up a few points to always keep in mind whenever I talk about AI to students, faculty, and staff. First, this is from a librarian perspective, not a computer scientist perspective, and regretfully, not from an artist perspective. I approach the project the way that I might teach students and faculty about a new database or a new computer system that the library is beginning to implement. Second, AI art and generative AI usage in general must be in accordance with university policies. If a faculty member or department has their own restrictions on how AI can be used, those policies must be observed as well. I do not want anyone coming to me saying that they used AI for their class and their professor gave them 0 for it because the librarian told them they could use these tools. That you have to respect the policies that are in place, whatever level they are. And finally, all AI work should be treated as a draft rather than a completed work. AI systems have a lot of benefits and uses, but also errors can also occur. You do not want to send out a work or an image as representative of yourself and your ability without double checking everything beforehand. With these points addressed, we can now continue with our discussion. So, well, first, what is AI art? AI art is the product of computer tools that can generate images and now even video based on text prompts and reference images. While the AI art has AI in the name, the tools that make these images follow a different process than the generative AI tools of ChatGPT and Perplexity, among others. Generally speaking, there are two models for AI art generators. The first is called a diffusion model. Diffusion models are trained to generate random images and then alter the images again and again, piece by piece, until the images resemble the prompt submitted by the user. The alteration process that this goes through is called denoising. These models are trained on vast data sets of images harvested from the internet to improve the accuracy of the results. And this happens on a continuous basis and before a user gets to use the system. Mid-journey and stable diffusion are versions of a diffusion model. The other type of model is called a transformer neural network. This system is trained by coupling words with their corresponding images so that the model can reference the correct images based on the text. When the user inputs their prompt, the model generates images that match the ones that the system has been trained on. DALL-E 3 is a model that runs on transformer neural networks, and DALL-E 3 is incorporated into systems like ChatGPT and Copilot, which we'll see later on in this presentation. So regardless of the model, each type goes through rigorous practice or training to generate the most accurate images. And it happens on a continuous basis. So we might see that this is like a certain version of this model meaning that they've released a new version that's supposed to be more accurate because it's gone through that additional training and practice. AI art has all kinds of uses and exciting possibilities, including generating drafts for art projects. So if you are an art student or you're pursuing a creative enterprise or a creative project, and maybe you want to see like some possibilities before you invest a lot of time and energy and uh, building the going through the process, then you can maybe have an AI art generate a few images for you to get some ideas about how certain things work and maybe different ways to approach it. All very draft stage, all very like conceptual stage, not necessarily having it do the work for you. You can also use it to practice new concepts or designs. If there's a particular artistic technique that you're struggling with, then maybe it can help you practice that and see ways that it can be done better. It can be used to create images for presentations, both professional and for school in this case. What you'll see throughout this presentation are images I created with various AI tools, mostly Mid-Journey, that are kind of like different type of scenic images based on like a watercolor style. So if I were to try to create a presentation or create image or find images for a presentation on like Google search, I would be spending hours scouring through trying to find those exact images that I want. With Midjourney, I can just create those in a couple of minutes, and then I can put them into my presentation. And they look really nice, and they look very, very pretty and very eye-catching. So I think that's a really effective way of using these AI art images. Developing marketing material. So if you're like a small business or you can't afford to hire a sophisticated marketing or digital design company to make up images for you, well, AI art can do some of that. It can help you develop some of those concepts. Maybe you want to take that to the final product or to a professional company, but it can at least help you think about ways that you can create eye-catching short flyers that might help your business. And these are just a few of them. There are much more ways that you can use AI art effectively. If you are interested in prompting some AI art yourself, there are some basic principles and strategies that you can employ. When building a prompt, consider specific elements to include into the prompt, including medium. So what type of artistic style you're looking for, such as like watercolor. Are you looking for something that looks like someone took a picture with a camera, photography? Are you looking for a type of like digital art? So spelling out specifically what the medium is that it's supposed to be in will help the AI art generator create something that's more akin to what you're looking for. The subject, which is literally just the purpose of the image, what you want to be featured in the image itself. So, like in this case, I had put in this image in the background, I had put in a valley with mountains in the background along those lines, and that helped to guide what the image would look like. You can also indicate a sample artist, such as an artist that has a style similar to what you're looking for. So putting in a request for a star-filled night and adding in Van Gogh will generate something that looks a lot like Starry Night. Now, as a personal preference, I think that if you are going to incorporate a sample artist into your prompt, you should indicate in any type of citation for that image that sample artist as well, because the style very much mimics the resulting image will very much mimic that artist's style. So to show that you're referencing someone else's work in that sense, I think is an extra caveat you should always make sure to mention if you're pulling from the work of a specific artist or a specific style, make that apparent in the any citation that comes with it. The details. So these are additional points of interest and where you want the elements to be arranged in the image. So spelling out specific details, for example, identifying where in the image you want elements to be. So if you want to say, I want there to be a castle in the background of this image, then literally writing that out. These tools, they're not thinking, they don't think, they can't be creative. They're just generating it based on their prompt and what else they've been trained on. So they're not going to necessarily fill in the gaps as well as you could if you were just like drawing the image yourself. So it's good to just kind of spell out exactly what you want to see as much as possible, and that will help generate a result that's more accurate to what you're looking for. And finally, any image repository support. So where you can find similar images, where where these images might be housed, where what online source can like images like this be found in. So like the National Gallery of Art, the the British Museum. Those are all kind of like they have a whole online repository of images that you can access and look at for free. So spelling out one of those locations can help to guide the AI prompt to find something that kind of matches the style you're looking for. Some AI generators, after the image is created, have the option to alter the prompt and images, and we'll see a few of those when I get to some of the specific AI tools. So for example, Midjourney can allow users to redo the prompt by focusing on specific areas of the image, and some more advanced tools allow the users to make increasingly specific alterations. There's also some AI tools also provide an option for negative prompts. So these are elements that you do not want to see included. So where the others might be considered positive prompts, saying like this is what I want to see in the image. Negative prompts can take out stuff that you do not want to see in the image, such as you might say no watermark. We'll talk about watermarks later on in the presentation, but maybe you also don't want to see any text in the image as well because these tools do not generate text very well. As for how much emphasis the AI tool looks at negative prompts compared to positive prompts, I don't entirely know. I've seen some images that have been generated and have kind of ignored the negative prompts, especially if it directly contradicts the positive prompt. So it might not necessarily put a lot of credence to the negative prompts compared to the positive prompts, but it's just like an additional way to try to guide the AI tool to generate something that matches your specifications. Next slide. So types of AI tools. So there are all kinds of AI art models available out there. I've just kind of been playing around and working with a few of four of the more popular ones. One that I've either seen referenced in some of the research journals I've been reading or have seen used in real life. So we're going to go ahead and start with Midjourney. We'll exit out of my PowerPoint briefly. Because of how long, as a note, and because of how long it takes to generate some of these images, I'll have some of these pre-planned or pre-prompted, so we won't necessarily like have to spend a couple minutes like watching the loading screen load. But I will have some images for us to look at. So as I've indicated, Midjourney is a diffusion model that generates images and also can create short animations. So here is what the Midjourney homepage looks like. And you can see that it's already giving us a whole bunch of random images that have been created by other people. So again, these are all online. If you create something with Midjourney, it just kind of goes into the repository. Now, not as much of a searching feature or filtering option. These are kind of just kind of hodgepodge, but at least it gives you some ideas about the kind of images that are out there and what other people are doing. So that's pretty cool. Now, if I want to go to create, I would, of course, submit my prompt here. You can also add an image. So with some AI tools, you can upload an image that you want to incorporate into whatever the end product is going to be, or as a guide for the kind of result that you're looking for. So which is also a good strategy to employ. So here I have some that have been generated, and with Midjourney, it generates 4 images per prompt. And if I over here, I look at this, it'll tell me the prompts that I inputted. And so if I want to, I can click on use prompt and it'll auto-generate it into my prompt bar so I can redo that search. We'll click on this one here. So here under this, I have what are called creation actions. So these will allow me to redo my prompt, telling it to make like a lot of changes or little changes. Note with Midjourney, it doesn't necessarily give me the like specifically ways I want to make it change, just to make the model run it again and make broader changes or more smaller changes. So if I'm trying to be more specific about the kind of image I want to generate, and that's not that as helpful, but at the very least, if there's like parts of it that I like that I want to redo or have it run again, I can have it run it again with those the change option. It also can make the image like larger depending upon what your purpose is. If you need an image that's for a specific type of format or a poster or for a presentation, you can make those changes there. And this is usage, so you can also indicate ways that you want this image to be employed into the next prompt that you come up with. So if you wanted to focus on the image as like a reference for the style or for the style or for the prompt itself, those are options as well. What also is cool about Midjourney is that you can come down here and you can choose low motion to animate the image. So it'll create like a short 10-second video of the elements of the image moving around. So it will animate it for you. That also takes time, so I'll scroll down to where I've already done a little bit of it. And you see the fish are now swimming around, which is pretty cool. And the camera's drifting a little bit. So it's not as expensive as some other tools that we'll talk about later on, but you can do this like quick little animation thing, which is I think kind of neat. And again, you have some creative options to also change those up. Midjourney doesn't have a free option. It is $10 a month across the board. I think maybe a couple of years ago when it was starting out, there was like a free tier, but now it is just $10 a month. But as far as I know, they don't think there is a prompting limit for the base pay. So it's definitely a cool tool. Go back to the next one, which will be ChatGPT. Dolly 3 is embedded in ChatGPT, so you have to have a subscription to ChatGPT in order to access it. But once you have a subscription to ChatGPT, you have this option here for image generator. And this is going to allow you to submit prompts for images, and it will give you some guidelines for what you should create. So again, it will take me a few minutes to generate an image, and I don't want everyone to sit here and wait for the thing to load properly. We'll just go to one of my previous images. And so taking like their generated image of a futuristic city, what it does for me here is it's going to give me these options here. So in addition to like letting me generate the image, it'll also it'll let me to it'll prompt me to think differently about the image itself that I'm creating. So I gave a very generic prompt here. So it'll say, great, before I make this, you want to talk about like a style. So I can go here and I can click on like different types of style and maybe I want to incorporate into my prompt. So then maybe I want to look at what type of day will it be and what's the purpose of this image. So what's nice about the ChatGPT version is it has this kind of follow-up here. Like if you are doing if you use the ChatGPT for like the research functionality, it'll do something similar where if you submit a research question, it'll ask like clarifying statements to make sure that things are as accurate as possible. And so what I did with this image was I said, make a poster for futuristic cities in the middle of the day. And this is what it created from that. So very nice, not super original. Obviously, none of this is original of AI, unfortunately. But it was able to generate something that meet my specifications of a futuristic city in the middle of the day. So that is ChatGPT. Is there any questions, by the way? I know we've had a few people join since we started. So okay, feel free to ask any if you do. We are we're continuing on. Oops, sorry. The next one to look at is Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion is another diffusion model like Midjourney. So it uses the diffusion model method for creating images. So I can prompt images down below here. I can also go here to the AI image generator if I want to like add some of those professional changes to an image to make it better, more aligned with my specifications. What I think is really neat about Stable Diffusion is that it has what's called a prompt database. And so this is going to have like other images that have been created. So if I go here to do superhero, I get a whole bunch of images about superheroes. And what's nice is that it also tells me the prompt that was used to create these images. So I've got this prompt here that if I want to, I can copy this prompt and I can put it into another image if I want to. So it gives me ideas about the different prompts that I can incorporate and use with these images. Let's do a little bit of prompting with it here. back to the home page. Hit draw. And so we can just look at this. This was an image I made earlier. You can see that I have this, this prompt, a superhero flying over a city wearing yellow and purple tights in a watercolor style. And it gives me some details about it. If I want to make some additional changes or edits, I have these options here to, add negative prompts. So it's going to give me an option for negative prompts if I want to. And it'll give me options to make different alterations like style, if I want to make it look design, photographic, changing the aspect ratio, if that was something I needed to worry about. And it also gives me the option to remove the watermark. Now you'll see that with the little lock symbol here, I probably have to be a paying customer in order to get access to this. But what's nice about Stable Diffusion is it allows you to create these images, a certain number of them a year or a day. I think it's 10 images per day with just having an account with them. So you don't have to pay a lot of money for access to these tools. The last one we'll look at is Microsoft Copilot, which if you work at the university and you've gotten a new keyboard in the last couple of months, I'm sure you've seen that there is a Copilot button on your keyboard. So it's something that the university, something that I'm sure some of you have used before. So Copilot also has the image creator as well, integrated into their system. So if you want to create an image, you can just do it from the main prompting option. Again, because I don't want to go through the process of generating an image, we'll just go to one of our previous prompt and go look at this image here of a watercolor image of a superhero flying over a city, and it's going to generate that for me. And it maybe gives me some prompting differences. So if I want to change up the prompt a little bit or change the image a bit, I have those options available to me. So again, a very fascinating tool. There probably are limits. There are limitations on what it will create. So if it's like anything revolving like a copyright restriction, then it won't create those images. And if you do too many images in a day, it's going to tell you've hit your limit for the day. So there are restrictions with Copilot. But again, a cheaper option than maybe Midjourney, which has a pretty base cost. Any questions about AI art generators? Okay, we'll go back into our presentation. So we talked a lot about how to make AI art, what are the best practices for creating AI art, but another important process is identifying AI art. So with identifying AI art, being able to identify AI art from real art is increasingly difficult as models continue to improve. There are still issues that users can look to identify AI artwork. So some of these are listed here: watermarks, checking the hand, feet, and body parts, repeating elements, inaccurate text, blurring of elements, and inaccurate light, shadow, and reflections. I will say that this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some of the options that are out there. It's always important to keep that in mind whenever you're dealing with art, that this isn't an exhaustive list. There are plenty of other ways to do so. And there are some digital programs that can be used to identify AI art with varying degrees of accuracy. So there are some computer programs that can also identify AI art. And depending on the type of AI art and steps that may have been taken to obscure its origin as AI art, that can also affect these digital programs' ability to identify them as well. So the first are watermarks. AI tools will often include a watermark in the image to mark them as created by a particular AI tool. Some of these watermarks may be visible and others may be obscured in the code. So this is the Stable Diffusion watermark. Obviously, because it was created with a free account, I couldn't remove the watermark when I created this image. So that's kind of what it looks like. It comes from like an old process in paper when paper was created, where like images would be set into the paper that would denote them being made by a particular producer or not. So that's kind of where the watermark concept comes from. It's applied in the digital world a similar way. Inaccurate hands, feet, and body parts. I'm sure you've seen this before. AI tools struggle to create accurate images or accurate details. While AI tools are great for broad strokes and general ideas, more complicated elements like fingers and toes are challenging to generate properly. As you can see from the mid-journey image, the hands of each individual have elements that are inaccurate. The gentleman has what seems to be a second thumb protruding from the first one, and it looks like there is the wrong finger against the woman's chin. Now, this is kind of a zoomed up image of the picture, so looking at it from like a distance, it's harder to tell that there are these misshapen body parts. So it's it's not like this is it. This is like super obvious when you first look at it, or you're getting a passing glance of an image. This is like after spending a bit of time to looking at it, you realize, okay, wait a minute, there's a few things that are off here. So just bear that in mind. If you just see an image, just take a second to look at it carefully, and pretty soon you'll see some stuff that doesn't seem to match up. Repeating elements. AI art often have elements that seem the same, almost as though somebody copied and pasted the same image repeatedly. As you can see in this image from Stable Diffusion, the airplanes look similar with very minor differences between each one. They're also positioned the exact same way. Excuse me. So you can tell this is AI. It's not hard to obscure it. And you see, yeah, that might not necessarily be a problem depending on how you're using it, but just be aware that repeating elements is definitely a problem with, is a way to tell that it's AI. Inaccurate text. So because these AI tools are image generators and not text generators, text is often a challenge for these tools. Remember, details can be challenging for AI tools. As you can see from the following mid-journey image, the attempted message of Lusitania, gone but not forgotten, is missing some important elements. The top is gobbledygook, gone but forgotten. It's kind of closer, and honestly, because of Midjourney, it created like 4 images, and this was the best of the 4. And not for nothing, but Lusitania is also misspelled too. So it got pretty close. Now that part of it, I will say, it got really close to spelling it right, but also wrong. So being mindful of that. That if you see text that doesn't really, the words do not make sense, it's AI generated. Blurring of elements, because these AI tools are image generators and not text. Oh, I'm sorry. Again, details are a challenge for AI tools. Borderlines between different images can be challenging to differentiate. For a human artist would know how to distinguish between the way a book looks when held by a person. An AI tool does not have that context or understanding. So you can see here that this page kind of like the pages kind of bleed together, and the angle of the words in the page are kind of like at kind of an odd angle from where if a person was holding a book in the same position, it wouldn't look like that. So just be mindful of that as you're looking at where different like places end, or where different people or objects end, and it looks like it's a little bit off. That's an indicator it's an AI image. Inaccurate lights, shadows, and reflections. AI tools often are unable to develop reflections, shadows, and lights in the way that they exist in reality. Specifically, the way in which light and shadows naturally appear is hard for AI to render properly. As you can see by the image, the reflection in the lake does not match up with the mountain range behind the lake. While an unskilled artist might fail to correctly capture the reflection, they would almost certainly not mess it up this badly. Again, AI does not have the innate understanding that a human being would to know how the physical objects work. So if you see something that the reflection seems to be off or doesn't seem to match up properly, then that's an indication that it's an AI image. Okay. While not the focus of the workshop, it's worth noting that AI generated videos have also become more prominent on the web. If you haven't been on social media lately, you may have missed out on all kinds of strange videos with surprisingly good video quality. One of the most popular AI generated tools that have come out in the last couple months is a program called Sora 2. You can download an app called Sora. It's run by OpenAI, the same one that did ChatGPT, and you can have it create these 10-second videos with text prompt that will then generate a fairly realistic image. I'm going to just try and make sure that my volume's down. I don't know if that'll affect because the video is pretty loud. This is one that I created for this presentation. The prompt was 3 librarians fighting over a book, epic music playing in the background. So, uh, is it dumb? Yes. Is it like Does it make a lot of sense? No. Are there elements that definitely are clearly AI generated? Of course. I bring it up for two big reasons. One, when I presented this idea for this project back in the summer, this was not out yet. This came out in September of 2025, and they released it for public use, and I think it's still free to use for now. Eventually, OpenAI is gonna put it behind a paywall or a subscription, I'm sure. But for now, people are using it, and you can see all kinds of these stupid videos on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. In fact, it's also gotten to the point where people are saying this isn't even like the best video generator. There are other ones out there that are even better than this one. So that shows you that people are this is changing rapidly. So this technology like AI images and videos, it all changes extremely rapidly. And the second point, so it's happening very quickly. Um, but yeah, so just be aware that where yeah, that's it. The point is that this it only took me the time frame that it took me to make this was a few minutes and just a few lines of text. 10 years ago in 2015 you would have had to have access to a very pricey very complicated computer program and have some skills in order to create an image of this quality or anything close to it. And then 20 years ago it would have required like voice actors and computer programmers and a whole team, like probably weeks to organize something like this. So it's just like the scaling and the time frame to create images like this has become so much shorter that it's really just an example of how rapidly things are changing. And of course, evaluating AI videos is similar to AI images. I will say it's probably a little harder to do it in a quick 10-second video, but even with that window, I'm sure you saw the elements that definitely didn't seem right. So you can kind of apply a similar framework to evaluating AI images that you can to AI videos too. So challenges. So as incredible as the technology can be, AI art does face challenges similar to other generative AI production. First is the bias in the end result. AI art is trained on images created by humans, coded by humans, and text prompted by humans. Because of this, bias can be present in the results. Images generated may reinforce racist or sexist attitudes or assumptions. Be mindful of that possibility when you're reviewing the generated images. There was a study that's in our references, in my references, that talked about the authors of the study prompted the AI tools to generate images of what they think a librarian looks like, and a lot of them fell into a similar generic statement of middle-aged woman, tight hair bun, very serious attitude. So these biases do exist in these program tools, similar to with other generative AI tools. Next, to consider are copyright restrictions or copyright issues. Without diving too deeply into the legal issues involved, I'm not a lawyer. The Library of Congress Copyright Office has determined that AI-generated images and text are not copyrightable under U.S. law as of January 2025. Since an AI's creation process remains obscure to the user cannot claim credit as the creator, the way that maybe an other artist might use a particular digital tool to create a work. There are certain exceptions to this rule, which kind of just deal with like if you're using uh, copyrighted material to create these AI images or incorporating them into it, then maybe a portion of it might be considered protected by copyright law. But that's for the lawyers and the courts to figure out if it ever comes to that. The bottom line is that using an AI generator is not enough to be considered the creator of a copyrighted work. Um, so also there's the problem with artist original work being used to train AI art models. To create these AI art generators, they have to be trained on these large data sets made up of real art and images available on the internet. Some of these art is available in the public domain, so they can be used by others, not just AI, but also for other purposes. But some of the art is the work of artists who not give their permission for their work to be digested by an AI tool. Many artists resent that their works have been used to create AI tools without their consent or compensation. Finally, we get to a question that is more subjective than other parts of this presentation. Is AI art art? How one answers this question depends on how one perceives AI generated image. One study that's included in our suggested reading or further reading, The Rise of AI Art, a look through digital artist eyes, frames the question like this: from a mechanical perspective, from a strictly does AI art create aesthetically pleasing images at the end of the process? Then the answer is yes. If we're talking about it from a strictly does it do what it says it does, then yes, it does create art. However, from a more abstract and more discipline focused conception of what art is and what has art been over the last several centuries, some have argued AI art doesn't evoke the kind of emotional response that pieces created by humans do. Whether AI art does or doesn't count as art is certainly a contentious question, which we're not going to answer here today. Personally, I lean more into that it doesn't really fit that conception of art myself, because the human element is important when you're looking at art. But others may disagree, and there's all kinds of forums on the internet where people are having it out and arguing about it. So some final thoughts. So just some thoughts that to take away from this presentation. AI art has utility use. It can be used to support other purposes rather than the main subject itself. So I don't think it's ever going to be something that's going to hang in a museum. It's never going to be something that's going to be put on display as representative of like artistic skill or brilliance. I think it can be supportive of other endeavors, like used in a presentation or as for drafting ideas or for like that early start of the conception process, where the other AI tools can also be used too. But it can't stand alone and be seen as art by in itself. It's just simply at this point not doesn't really meet that criteria. Um, Second point to take away: technology is always changing, and what has been covered today in this presentation may not be true in a couple of months. We might be talking about Sora 3 or even more advanced AI images down the pipeline. So it's always a good idea to be aware of how the environment's changing, how the tools out there are changing, because you might be surprised at how effective they might be. And final note: detection technology is not perfect. When you're dealing with images, especially you find on the internet or on social media, common sense and careful assessment must be practiced. This goes for like anything you find on social media, and any news piece, any blog post you come across. You always have to be aware that these might not be real. These might not be created by people who have people's best interest in mind. For now, these videos are pretty stupid. They're pretty funny. They're ridiculous, but they might be used for more nefarious purposes down the line. So you have to be aware that you have to like constantly evaluate whatever you see in the digital world, in the digital sphere. So um, here's my reference list and some suggested readings. Definitely worth taking a look at if you're curious more about this topic. Are there any questions? Well, if not, thank you guys for coming today. Hope you learned something new, and feel free to reach out if you have additional questions. Oh, got something in
Thank
the
you very
chat.
much,
Yeah.
Charles.